Hi, this is Tony Kent, and this is another episode of Tony Kent Writes and Cross-Examines. And the person today who will be subject to the terrible cross-examination that will get us nowhere is award-winning writer. It's nice to say award-winning, isn't it? Award-winning writer this time. Amer Anwar.
Nice to hear it.
Amer writes the West London-based Zaq Khan series that began with the CWA Debut Dagger Award-Winning Brothers in Blood, and is continuing now, I believe, in September this year, Anwar, with Stone Cold Trouble, which is the next in the series. So, Anwar, how are you? How are you dealing with the lockdown?
Yeah, I'm dealing with it all right. I mean, being a writer, I'm quite used to being self-isolated in a small room and sort of trying to write a book. So that's fine. It's
good. As a breed, we're all seemingly a bit unpopular, aren't we? So we're used to being by ourselves.
Yeah,
the only people who like us are us.
I think I miss most is going down the pub every so often, you know, when you need to just get away from the computer and everything.
Yeah, I've noticed that actually, because I'm looking outside and I've noticed the same thing. The weather's been beautiful and we've had so many great days, and we're having another great day today, and you're not a million miles from me, so I know you're probably having the same weather. And the thing is, I don't like it because I want to go to a pub garden if I'm looking at this.
It'd be much nicer if this was happening in winter and it was like freezing cold and
exactly, stay indoors.
Yeah.
So we were speaking before we started recording. We were having a chat about your CWA Debut Dagger Award. I'm very jealous because nobody even nominated me for one, let alone winning one.
That's one that you didn't. That particular one you don't need to be nominated for. You just send in your entry yourself because it's for unpublished crime novels and crime writers, and you just send in the first 3,000 words or so.
Yeah, and I think normally people will send in 3,000 words of a completed book, but I think you decided to do that a bit differently, didn't you?
Well, I didn't decide. I think it was a case of not actually thinking it through very well, and I'd only written the first couple of chapters and I'd heard about this competition, and I thought it'd be great just to enter something and get my first rejection and get on the road to getting used to that whole feeling of all those rejections you get on the road to publication. Yeah. So it was quite a shock when I ended up winning the actual overall award. But it got me a great agent who helped, and then she wanted, obviously she said I'd love to read the rest of the book, and I was like, about that. I've written it. So she said, well, you need to finish it, and she asked me, how long do you think it's going to take to finish? And I'd never tried writing a book before, so I had no idea. And I thought, what's a suitably lengthy amount of time that it might take to write a book? I was just guessing, and I said, about 6 months. And every crime writer I've sort of told that to has just kind of like laughed. And my agent didn't bat an eyelid, so she probably thought, wow, at that rate he'll write 2 books a year, this will be fantastic. It took me 5 years to send her a draft that I was finally happy with.
Now, was she phoning you during this 5 years or emailing saying, this is a weird 6 months?
She did ask right at the beginning. She said, do you want us to be like on your back asking where it is and, continually? And I said, no, just leave me to it. And when it's ready, because I knew I'm quite contrary at times. If people are telling me to do something, or I tend to go even slower. But if I'm left to my own devices, I'll kind of knuckle down.
If you're left to your own devices, you can do it in 5 years.
well, to be fair, I was working full time.
I'm only joking. I completely get it.
I know. But it
took me about 15 to do my first one.
And I was doing an MA as well in creative writing because I had no idea about writing, and I figured, I need to learn as much as I can.
Yeah.
So I was doing those 2 things, and I had a young child, as you know about now. That that takes a fair amount of time as well. So I was writing the book on the side of all that. So I'm quite impressed that I got it done in 5 years.
So tell us a bit about the book, because it's Brothers in Blood is set in Southall, isn't it? West London, but primarily in Southall. Right. I know you grew up, you told me, in Ealing, which is one side of Southall. I grew up in Uxbridge, which is the other side, pretty much equidistant the other side of Southall. So it's a place we're both very familiar with, but it's an unusual place, Southall, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a big Asian community there, and I'd sort of spent a lot of time there growing up in my teens and early 20s and stuff, and I got a lot of friends there, and I was forever hearing stories about really sort of colourful, interesting characters. And reading a lot of crime novels, I thought this would be a perfect place to set a crime novel. And in reality, I thought somebody would do it. I was waiting for somebody to write a book set there, because that's what I wanted to read. And then when I finally started writing a novel, nobody had done it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it. I've wanted it for such a long time, so I'll have to do it myself. And I used that setting, based the characters in the book on sort of my friends and characters I'd heard about and stuff like that, and set the book there. And I think at that point there wasn't anything else like that, and there was definitely nothing kind of set there, especially not in the crime sort of genre.
Yeah. And has that changed now? Because the thing is, Brother in Blood has been incredibly successful, hasn't it? I mean, once you wrote it, finished it, it's been books of the year, I believe, in the Guardian. There was something just the other day about the
and the Times and the Sunday Times recently picked it as one of the best crime novels of the last 5 years.
I mean, it's just amazing, isn't it? What an incredible thing!
It's amazing. Someone who said it's one of the best crime novels nobody's ever heard of.
That was the other thing. That was in something just last week, wasn't it? There was an article
in the iNews. Yeah.
The best crime novels you haven't heard of.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's probably a double-edged sword, isn't it? But ultimately, still, you're even now. I mean, a few years later, you're still being thrown in there with the rest of them as that this is it's a fantastic piece of work, and it really is. I mean, I read it as soon as I knew about it. I think we met in Harrogate 2 years ago. I read it straight away on the basis that I just thought, well, it's in Southall, and I've never read. Same as you said, I obviously, I don't come from the Asian community, so there's a different sort of side to it, I guess. No, you'd never know, would you? But so it's a sort of different, but I still grew up in that area, so there's a sort of, I guess, a tweaked interest on that, and I wanted to read it straight away, and I thought it was like being there. It was very, very authentic, very much. It very much is the area. But no, so with the success you've had and with the critical success, has that changed things? Are we seeing more of that kind of sort of Asian crime?
I think that there wasn't anything when I was writing the book, but then just around the time I'd finished it and it was looking to get published, there was other authors coming through, and around the same time there was a lot that sort of slowly started to sort of seep in to the genre. And I think the authors like Amer Mukherjee, Khurram Rahman, A.A. Dand, Basim Khan, and there's lots more now slowly sort of coming in, but still very, very few. If you look at the number of books that are being published, it's
still very little, not very much London stuff either.
No, I think Khurram's is London based, and that's set in Hounslow, so so that's very close, and he's got that whole vibe spot on as well. But I mean, 2 books out of however many sort of thousands are published is a drop in the ocean, really. Yeah,
it really is. And I think you were saying earlier, it wasn't the easiest, despite the fact you won the award you'd won. And for those who don't know, winning a dagger is a huge thing for any writer. So to have won that on your first 3,000 words is just incredible. And despite that,
there's still other writers who have entered and didn't win, but have gone on to be published. And whenever they sort of hear that I won it, they're like, "Oh, I'm so jealous! I can't believe you won it." And it is quite a big deal.
And I mean, the reason I was mentioning it is you still struggled during the publication process.
Yeah, I mean, I got an agent, which is hard enough to do, and I have the same agent as Val McDermid, so I've got one of the best in the business. And when the book was ready and she was sending it out to publishers, it got turned down by every single publisher it went to, and that was about 30, all the big publishing houses. For various reasons, but they all said the book was good. They really liked the dialogue, the setting, the characters, the action, the pacing, the plot. And I was like, well, what else do you actually need in a good crime novel? It seemed to have all the elements, but there was always some kind of but and a caveat, And I think the one that really kind of nailed it was for me, that kind of set the light bulb off, was one publisher said I could never visualize it breaking out to a broad audience. And I was like, well, surely the crime reading audience are after something with a good plot and great characters and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
The only thing nobody mentioned was the fact it was set in Southall and it had Asian characters, British Asian characters, and that was the only thing. Then, when you add up all of the comments, that was the only thing that it could have been. So yeah, it was quite upsetting, I guess.
Oh no, you're absolutely bang on, absolutely correct to be upset, because that can be the only meaning. That's the only thing that could mean. And yet now we've got a situation where, you know, it's come out, it's been a success. We've got the next one coming, and hopefully you've sort of paved the way for people coming behind you.
Well, hopefully, I mean, it would be great to do that, you know, to help others, because those are stories that people are happy to read. I mean, when the book did come out, the reviews that I got from readers all over the country, I remember one in particular that really stood out was from a lady, and she said, "I'm not sure if I'm the right target audience for this book." She said, "I'm white, female, 40, and Scottish, but I absolutely loved it." And she went on to write a really glowing review for the book, and that was what it was about. I was writing it for people to enjoy, and not, you know, you don't have to be Asian to enjoy it.
Well, exactly.
Just like the film Slumdog Millionaire was set in an Indian slum, but you don't have to live in an Indian slum to have enjoyed that movie, and it went on to win an Oscar. So.
Well, it's the problem, isn't it? We live in a world now where people want surefire bets, and it's of course there's a race element to it. There has to be from what we're saying, but because a book of that type hadn't hit, they weren't willing to take the hit. They weren't willing to take the risk. Whereas now a book has hit, so let's have some more. You know, people. I imagine they're now looking for the next Amer Anwar.
Possibly, yeah.
So tell us quickly, because we're going to run out of time in about 3 minutes. So tell us quickly about your main character and Stone Cold Trouble, because that's what we want people to be putting their pre-orders in for, isn't it?
Okay, yes, indeed. So the main character is Zaq Khan. He's an ex-con. By the time we meet him in Stone Cold Trouble, he's been out of prison for just over a year. And the only job he can get is as a delivery driver for a building firm. So he drops off building materials all around sort of the West London area. At the beginning of Stone Cold Trouble, his best mate has wrote...
That's Jags.
Is Jags, yeah. Zaq is a Muslim and Jags is a Sikh, but they're best friends. They've grown up together. Jags's uncle needs them to help him out with something. So Jags goes over. It turns out that the uncle has lost a very valuable piece of jewelry in a card game. Okay. So, and the person who's got it is this shady kind of businessman. And he wants Zaq and Jags to help him get the necklace back. So they agree to help him. And of course, things don't go as smoothly as they would have hoped. And then the other storyline is that Zaq's brother is assaulted very seriously and put in hospital. Yeah. And he's in an induced coma. And he wonders if this is anything to do with the events of Brothers in Blood or somebody else from his past out to get revenge. And so the two storylines run throughout the book and then eventually come to a head at the end.
Yeah. Sounds fantastic. It sounds like it's very much a sequel then to Brothers in Blood.
Yeah, it is. It carries on just a couple of months after the end of the first book, and there are. I don't think you need to have read it necessarily, the first one, but there's lots of little references and things that I think if you've read it, you'll kind of it'll really click, and you'll kind of probably get more out of it if you know what they're referring to.
Well, I always think if you've written a book like that, if you've written a book like Brothers in Blood, that it's a very personal book about the characters, you're always going to be better off reading that first and then reading the next one, aren't you? I mean, it's very important.
A better idea of who they are and what they've been through.
We all want to write books that could be. We all want films to be made, but we want books to be read as standalones, to be capable of being read as standalones, because otherwise you cut off potential buyers. But in all honesty, it's nicer to have someone read a series as it's written, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I did try to write it as a standalone, but I did want, because I knew the characters well, and I did want, for people who'd read the first book, I wanted there to be something extra, like little Easter eggs in the story that they would go,
It's exactly what I say.
Yeah.
Listen, we've got 15 seconds left, and I don't want to rush you off completely, so I wanted to take just time left to say thank you very, very much, Amer, for coming on, and the best of luck with the next book.
Thank you very much. been a
Cheers.
pleasure. Cheers, Tony.
Take care. Bye.